Hi and welcome. Business continuity planning (BCP) and disaster recovery planning (DRP) are information security controls to ensure the continued availability of your critical services in case of any disruption. Now, disaster will happen sooner or later, and therefore you need to analyze all the threats to your information systems or business so that you can plan the responses accordingly. Now, BCP and DRP are the final controls when every other control is bypassed. So, if BCP and DRP get compromised, then it means that the business is failed. Now, business continuity planning is basically business focused, and it is carried out before, during, and after a disruption to ensure the availability of your critical business services in case of any disruption. Uh, Now, BCP is a long-term plan and it is at strategic level, and it is basically an umbrella plan which contains certain other plans including disaster recovery planning. Now, disaster recovery planning is basically an IT focused plan, and it supports business continuity planning, and disaster recovery planning is a plan at tactical level. And the main purpose of disaster recovery planning is to respond to a disaster in a quick, efficient manner, and also to recover your information systems in a fast manner. Another additional advantage of disaster recovery planning is that it improves the efficiency of your information systems by identifying and fixing the gaps. So, disaster recovery planning is a short term plan, whereas business continuity planning is a long term plan. Now, there are certain threats which may lead to a disaster for which we have to carry out this BCP and DRP. Now, these threats may be natural or human based, or maybe from IT environment. Now, the natural threats are not frequent but have more impact once they occur. For example, earthquake and tornado. Now, the human threats are more frequent and common, and these may be intentional. For example, some hacker is trying to hack into the organization, or unintentional. For example, your administrator is doing any mistake or any error or omission by your software developer. Then the threats related to IT environment include electric fire or IT equipment failure. Now, first of all, we develop the DRP or disaster recovery planning so that in case of any disaster, we can implement this disaster recovery in an efficient manner. So, this disaster recovery planning has 6 steps while we develop this disaster recovery planning. And these 6 steps are the project initiation, where you actually initiate this disaster recovery planning project, and you select the project manager and disaster recovery planning team. And you also gather different stakeholders from business units in your organization. And after project initiation, then you perform the business impact analysis to identify and prioritize your critical services or assets. And in the third step, you actually identify the preventive controls in order to stop or prevent any disaster from happening. And in the fourth step, you devise recovery strategies so that if any disaster does happen, then you can recover your IT or information systems in a efficient and quicker manner. And in the fifth step, you actually implement your plan by testing it and training your employees on this disaster recovery planning, which you have developed in the previous step. And then in last sixth step, you actually monitor and update the disaster recovery plan to accommodate any change in the business model or in the architecture, information system infrastructure. Now, these are actually the six steps for developing a disaster recovery plan. And after implementing this disaster recovery plan, once any disaster does happen, then you carry out disaster recovery activities as per your disaster recovery planning. Now, these activities are also around six, I suppose. That is the initial response to a disaster. Then you activate your teams or disaster recovery team, and then you communicate with different stakeholders internally and externally. And then this disaster recovery team, which you have activated in the previous step, carries out the detailed assessment, and then it recover the systems, and at the maybe the primary site or maybe at secondary site, depending upon the situation. And at the end, you reconstitute your primary site, or you rebuild your primary site. So in initial response, actually initial assessment is carried out in a fast manner to judge whether a particular negative event is a disaster or not, and disaster declaration is done by the senior management. You do not focus on the full assessment because it may be performed later, but the speed is essential in this step because you want to ensure the safety of your people and the user data. So safety of the people always come first, and then the data of the user or your customer. Then in second step, you activate the disaster recovery team, and you activate it through a mechanism known as calling tree. Now this calling tree is a hierarchical model where the senior management will call upon the middle management, and the middle management will call the units under them, and so on. And each component will confirm the establishment of connection with the component below it to the component above it. So it is a two-way communication. Then you communicate internally regarding the status of disaster recovery efforts within the organization with different stakeholders, and this communication should be carried out of band because your primary communication channel might be affected by the disaster. You also could communicate with the external parties, for example the media or the public, because you are responsible to protect the data of the public which you are hosting, and people are concerned about their the protection of their data in case of any disaster. So you have to calm them down through the interaction or through by communicating them the status of your disaster recovery efforts. So maybe the HR persons or any expert with public relation may communicate with external parties or media. Now the disaster recovery team, which you have earlier activated by calling tree, maybe carry out the detailed assessment of the damage, and it ascertain the mission of the disaster recovery effort and the maximum tolerable downtime which you have calculated while developing the DRP prior to this disaster. So actually they ensure that this MTD or maximum tolerable downtime this should not exceed, and your systems or information system should be recoverable within MTD, because if they are not, then the objective or the mission of DR effort is lost. So this depending upon this detailed assessment, this DR team will recommend whether to shift or recover the operation at the primary site or at alternate or secondary site. Now here again the safety of your people is the major concern. Now after this detailed assessment, you recover your operations or maybe the critical operations at primary or secondary site depending upon the situation, and you got to ensure the same level of controls at secondary site which you were using at primary site, so that no further incident is happened. Now the C level or the chief information officer or chief executive officer is responsible, or the senior management is responsible to decide whether to shift the operation as primary or secondary side or not. So this DR team will provide the information, but final decision will come from the senior management. Now in the final state, after recovering of your critical operations or information system at secondary site, your salvage team will go to the primary site and try to recover the primary site, because you have to ultimately fall back to your primary site. So this process is reconstitution. So these are the activities related to DRP. This was all from my side. Please stay connected to my channel for similar videos. Thank you.